I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on? It's not enough to say it's nuts. You have to explain why it's so nuts. The invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, the systems which are in place to keep the world sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed.
Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Ryan Burns. Check out my films, Occult Louisiana's on Tubi, Roku, Apple, and a few more. Doors of Perceptions on Amazon Prime, and a free streamer called Relay. If you'd like to make a donation for our third film fundraiser, we have links in the description. Any donation of $100 or more, you get a film credit and a pre-release copy of the film. We're aiming for a release roughly 6 months from now for that one. We are booking guests for March. If you have suggestions or you'd like to be a guest, email me forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today I want to welcome back to the show Ryan Burns. He began researching the Uintah Basin and the mysterious skinwalkers in the area many years ago. He now owns property overlooking the ranch. He hosts the popular podcast Hero Paranormal. He's written about his experiences investigating shapeshifters, UFOs, and precognitive intelligences. Ryan, welcome back. How you doing?
Doing fantastic. How have you been?
I'm doing well myself, my friend. It is great to see you. I believe the last time we recorded an episode was Halloween. Since then, so much has happened. Epstein files revealing the most evil and depraved human behavior by none other than those we elect and pay taxes to. And then a very convenient seeming announcement by the Trump to release the UFO files. Meanwhile, most involved at the highest levels with various crimes against humanity remain to live free, continue to eat babies, as well as an archonic global AI surveillance system that continues to be deployed and developed. What a time to be alive, man. So much to get into. Before we do, remind the audience briefly a little about yourself. Let them know how they can find out more.
Sure. My name is Ryan Burns. You can find my channel on YouTube or on social media. It's Hero Paranormal, just a small podcast. By hook or by crook, luck, either good or bad, I found myself in the middle of a black budget Pentagon project that was focused in the Uintah Basin of Utah. At the time, I didn't know it, but I saw a lot of weird things. And I currently own a property that shares a fence line with the old Utah UFO ranch. But more importantly than that, since the late 90s, I've come across more and more layers of this onion. And, you know, you would think that this makes more sense, but as things get more and more deep, you realize that it's just, like you said, a crazy world we live in.
Before we get into some of the insanity that's been unfolding as of late, you mentioned the property that you manage and the insane activity that tends to occur there. Has there been any new developments, any happenings, activity, experiments?
Yeah, I'm actually looking at paperwork right here, emphasizing trying to obtain permits for a 3D seismic survey on tracts of land that we're discussing. And it's pretty crazy stuff. Pretty crazy stuff. That led me down some interesting anomaly rabbit holes. Some important documents that came across my desk were the fact that there's been, I guess, 8 or 9 what they call anomalies, radioactive anomalies in the close proximity. And it's not just hunters, you know, that are getting elk and then complaining that they feel funny after they eat the elk. There's actual verified anomalies, and I have a list of them having to do with autunite, which is a strange form of uranium found there in the area. And yeah, things are weird, wild, and getting weirder.
I know normally there are unusual levels of radiation, even in some of the locations. But I've heard instances where people will come into contact with, like you said, an animal or even a mutilated cattle, and it will cause some effects, some negative effects on their biology, right?
That's exactly true. It's very strange because it can go both ways. And the reason I say that is somebody I know very well had fourth stage leukemia, and they spend a considerable amount of time out on the property you've been to.
Hmm.
And this is a good old boy that decided, I'm not going to do their treatments. I'm not going to do what they tell me. If it's my time to go, it's my time to go, which is very similar to my theology. But he, you know, he pointed out that that he didn't have long. Fourth stage leukemia is something you usually don't bounce back from.
Hmm.
But he spent a considerable amount of time out at Space Wolf Research, and very considerable. And he called me up and he told me, "Man, you won't believe what happened. I went in and the doctor said, 'Where are you getting treatment?' And he said, 'I'm not.' And he said, 'Well, I know that's not true because we took a urine sample and a blood sample and there's radiation in those samples. So where are you getting
Interesting.
treatment?'" Yeah. And he
Huh.
said, "I'm not." And so he thought this was worse news until the doctor told him, "Well, your cancer's gone." And
Wow.
so he was irradiated, but apparently the cancer disappeared. And so it can be bad. It can be good. You can get radiation burns on your skin. That's obviously bad. But in these strange cases that I could never imagine, I guess there's also a flip side.
Yeah, I wonder if the beings like you or not. Maybe they will decide to heal you or cause some damage. Who knows? Before we move on, anything else? Any other new happenings surrounding the ranch?
Quite a few. There's a lot going on. There's been interesting cattle mutilations in the nearby area. There has been a significant amount of drone activity that I think they seem to be deployed in twos and threes. I think they may be government. Of course, they could be shadow government. They could even be civilian. I don't know, but they're coming in twos and threes. And yeah, it just keeps things interesting.
As it relates to events unfolding, what are your thoughts on? We'll start with Epstein file release, the information that's coming out, the reaction, the lack of justice.
Yes, the lack of justice is phenomenal. It is, I mean, this guy's in on everybody's phone record, email record. He's talking to everybody. And, the thing that I'm noticing is that we have to be really careful of the deep fakes
Yeah.
because I've always maintained that he's still alive. However, they are now, as you know, posting images and videos of Ghislaine Maxwell and of him. And the problem is with deepfake technology, the best thing to do is to have controlled opposition. To put out these deepfakes, then debunk them, and then you put it to rest. Much like they did with Pizzagate way back in the day, which now we know there's a lot more to pizza and grape soda and beef jerky than we
Ugh,
ever thought.
yeah.
But the best thing, and the way that this works best, is if the powers that be debunk themselves and everybody agrees and thinks that this is something that's no longer relevant. And I suffer from this. Every day something will come across my desk and I'll just be shocked. And then I'm just so tired of looking at the
Hmm.
same stuff. And I'm sure you feel the same, that you just almost don't care. But we can't let go of this ball. I mean, we're almost to the end zone.
When you say that, what does that mean to you? Do you think that some of the people involved at higher levels will be brought to justice?
Unfortunately not. I
Hmm.
I and it's more than that, right? It's back to the same plan, problem, reaction, solution. The issue is with the Hegelian dialectic, they only have one playbook, and you and I know that. And people in the conspiracy world are already advanced enough to know that. But the common man doesn't know that. They believe that they're coming up with all these things organically. And the issue here is that this goes way back. This goes in the times of kings, if the grain was rotten or looters were robbing the plebeians, they would surround the palace with like pitchforks and torches and demand either protection or cleaner grain or whatever the case might be, clean water. And always, without a doubt, what the king would always do is do what we're seeing now, point over in another direction and say, "We've got an incoming problem, but
Hmm.
I'll protect you from that problem," or point in the direction of bread and circuses and just distract. And nothing's changed. So we have Epstein going on. We're getting pointed in another direction. We have problems with the economy. We get pointed in another direction. I think that all the things that have happened recently are not in any way by surprise. It's all orchestrated.
You've had experiences with, I'll say, people in higher levels of three-letter agencies, military industrial complex, and you've relayed that there are individuals and groups that are extremely interested in the occult. There are implications of ritualistic activity coming out within the Epstein files. It does, on the surface, seem like these individuals are involved with occult ritualistic activity. But I wonder if that could be a theatrical front to further demoralize people so that we believe that they're all powerful and they use magic to control the masses. But it's probably more likely that they really are into all that stuff, right?
They really, oh, it's so good. Dude, yeah, they really are. They really are. When you need a deity that does things on your timeline, you unfortunately have to get pointed in the direction of certain deities, which are by the masses considered unpopular. And what I mean by that is, you often hear people of faith say, well, everything happens on God's time. It's God's time, not mine. The right thing will happen if you just wait long enough. Well, these L-ites or parasite class or super class and power elite, they don't have time to wait. They need what they need when they need it. And they enter these Faustian pacts. And I think it's not only possible, but actually happening that this secret superclass who are still worshiping ancient deities that demand sacrifices, and some of those sacrifices do come in the form of some of these darker topics we're going to be discussing. And it's not coincidental that the symbolism is all over the news. It's not just Epstein. I mean, we had, I say crazies, but I mean, she's not crazy, but she is crazy. We have crazy personalities like, uh, oh my gosh, she grew up in Salt Lake City. I should know her. Roseanne Barr. She grew up right
Yeah.
next to Liberty Park. I should know her name. Grew up in the same town I did. But we have Roseanne Barr back in 2014 saying, hey, these guys are eating babies on this island. And everybody thought she was crazy then. We still think
Hmm.
she's crazy now. But this stuff has been out. It's just funny that everybody's just barely got it on their radar. And 100% people are openly burning effigies, praising deities. The cult of Baal is alive and well. Moloch is getting his daily dues. And stuff is happening.
Based on your understanding, Do you think that they consider themselves to be doing something either good or evil? Do they believe in duality, or do they believe they're serving the masters of this realm, essentially?
That's the beauty of it, right? What a good question, man. I know you know by how you asked that question. Um, Interestingly enough, even the darkest forces believe they're doing it for the right reasons. The Sabbatean Frankists, those who followed Zabbatai Zevi, or those who openly openly claim to be satanic or praising deities like Baal or Moloch, or there's a handful of others. The reality is that their argument is they will bring about a new world order or the correct way that things should happen by pushing the envelope on the evil. In other words, if you're out there having orgies and sacrificing children and doing all this bad stuff, it will make the original creator god El want to dip his finger into the pool and fix things. And what better way to get God to interact with humanity than to force his hand? So
Wow.
they believe that this is all being done. You know, if there is a divine order, if they sacrifice a child, for example, that kid's guaranteed to be a millionaire in the next life. He's guaranteed to have a hot wife. He's guaranteed to have a great car because of the karmic justice. So they think they're doing everybody a favor, whether we like it or not.
Let's get into what I see as a distraction, but I'm open to possibilities. Only time will tell really what's going to come out of this. And I'm talking about the UFO disclosure. I want to believe, as my poster says back there, you look back to the QAnon information, they were predicting that disclosure would eventually happen, and we'd have all this amazing cosmic technology and free energy and med beds. Unfortunately, I'm a little skeptical about that aspect, but they also had a lot of information about Donald Trump as it relates to his actions that would benefit humanity. And I am still of the belief that the QAnon thing was an operation, a psychological operation. But of course, they did have to throw in bits of truth in order for it to work. Do you see this level of disclosure that's about to unfold as a distraction from the Epstein files, or is it something else?
It's going to be controversial. It is always a distraction.
Yeah.
There, and what I mean by that is a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army in 1968, known as Michael Aquino, wrote an amazing book called Mind War. This guy was also a self-proclaimed Satanist and eventually Setist. He founded the Temple of Set, going all the way back to Egypt. And he explained and did a very good job of outlining how these things work. And so to get into the technology, yes, we have craft using inertial mass reduction devices. We have patents on medical med beds that work. I had a individual come into town who works in a team of 6 under 3-letter agency. And I told him, hey, I know a doctor that's got these, these things that don't exist if you want to use them. And he came out and he used it and he surveyed the deal and he's like, yeah, that's the real deal. And he bought a package and he's going to be back in town. And keep in mind, he doesn't live here. And so the stuff exists. The technology works. And occasionally we'll get glimpses of it, but we will never reap the benefits of it. We see glimpses in things like the Maduro raid, where all of these poor Cuban militia are bleeding out the eyes, ears, and puking up blood before our guys get off the copter. So
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to defend at that point. But at the same time, it's war, and all is fair in love and war. And with the Epstein files, that's the love end of it, which is also pretty ugly. And the war end of it's also pretty ugly. So we do have this stuff. We will use it if we need to, but I doubt that the people will get the benefits of it. And it's a lot like bread and circuses. It's amazing to see how people get so behind these huge coliseums. We call them Super Bowls now, but they get behind their team for these people making way more money than them, and they get so emotionally involved when the reality is these people could care less about them. It has nothing to do with their daily lives. And the same is true when it comes to, like, America, the weaponry we have. Even I get a little patriotic. I'm just like, yeah, this is awesome. When I heard we had directed energy weapons that we're using in the field, this is great, right? That'll protect us if they come to us. But it's not that way.
I was listening to an interview with a congressman. I forget his name, what state he's representing, but he was very concerned about the release of the UFO files because he believes that there's going to be enough information out there to shake society to its core and cause major upheaval. He mentioned things like high resolution videos of not only craft, but possibly beings. I don't know if this would cause upheaval. I think most people are ready for this. They've been prepping it for a long time, but I'm not sure we're going to have that level of disclosure coming out of that. What do you think?
I don't think we will at first. I think it'll eventually get there. And I think we have a lot of forced narratives. People like that have both ends of the spectrum, right, so to speak. And they are in a paid position to push whatever agenda. And I'm talking about in ufology as well. Major players that you would never guess are paid narrative controllers, gatekeepers. And the reality is that a lot of this stuff seems to be organic from a distance, but when you look into it, it's not. And I always get attacked whenever I mention any of these institutes or research projects or laboratories. In fact, I know of a guy that just had his lab seized, shut down by the FBI and the CIA. And he basically said, I can't answer any questions on why this happened, but I was talking too much. And this is what happens. But these CIA assets like Jeffrey Epstein, who participate in these gate programs, and even using the word gate program kind of puts me on the hot seat. They are ushered into these positions of power. There's a reason why Jeffrey Epstein didn't have to go to middle school. There's a reason why Jeffrey Epstein didn't have to go to college, why he just got given a job by William Barr, Attorney General's dad, to the Dalton School. The gates, for lack of a better word, just open, and they're placed in these positions of power. And they are told as they rise to these positions of power that they're more and more special, and they start to believe it. I like to call them constructs. I think Epstein is a construct. Dare I say Elon is a construct. And I'm starting to wonder if anybody is not constructed. I think there's very few organic examples of people rising to these places. But yeah, to answer your question, we're going to see some form of disclosure, but it's nothing that's going to blow your socks off or my socks off.
Do you think the military is in possession of what they call non-human biologics, extraterrestrials?
Yeah. I heard a phone conversation today, of all days, with there's cloning programs, there's hybridization programs, there are still genetic manipulation programs. There's still these gate programs taking place in our schools. And I know of an example near and dear to me. I know of an example of a child that their parents were worried that she was a part of this program. They took her out of the school, and not long afterwards, they found a young lady early in the morning. A crossing guard found a young lady completely naked in 40-degree weather with like an eyes wide shut mask at the entrance of the school. So these things are still happening, and these programs are very real. They're here. Much like Robert Bigelow has said, they're here. They've always been here. So don't get your panties up in a bunch. And that's the problem, right? Everybody, that's what they want. If there is disclosure to that level that you're discussing, if it ever comes to that blue beam level, as we like to call it, where, oh my gosh, they're here and they're the enemy, that's because we ran out of enemies. We ran out of bread and circuses. We ran out of things to distract from whatever we're trying to distract from.
You mentioned gate a few times.
Yeah.
If you look at the possibilities of what is really behind this, I would say scouting and recruiting for some kind of clandestine operation, maybe even locating people with psionic or psychic abilities or other special gifts, maybe some kind of connection to non-human intelligences. Would you agree with those reasons?
Yes. And they do exist. There are people that are more capable than others, but we're all basically designed the same. And interestingly enough, there's very simple things you can do to become more gifted. Very simple, extremely simple, ridiculously simple. Things like unplugging your Wi-Fi at night, drinking 16 ounces of water in the morning, taking off your shirt and getting some sun, using your back especially as a solar panel. And these special groups of gifted children that later go on to be influential, they teach them this, but then they also include things like special classes and reiterating how special they are. If you take two kids that are equally gifted or twins, and you put one on one side of the tracks and the other on the other side of the tracks, and you tell one that they're worthless garbage and they'll never amount to be anything, and you tell the other one that anything is possible and that God loves them and that they're destined to do great things, guess what? That's exactly what transpires. Even if you do this to plants, it works. So there's a lot of physicists, politicians, and people in positions of power who have been in these gifted programs. And sometimes their IQs are not that high. They were just always told that they were going to be gifted. And that's what happens.
As far as the duality amongst non-human intelligences, we've discussed this a bit as it relates to more metaphysical intelligences, but it's possible that there are physical beings that are either coming from different planets or dimensions as well. According to many contactees, abductees, people who have claimed to have direct contact, there is a benevolent species of extraterrestrials, possibly several benevolent species that not necessarily is directly working with humanity, but may have our better interest in mind. This is a tough one for me because I've seen a lot of the contrary, a lot of indicators that there are very malevolent beings. And when you do have the experience of the positive, there's always the possibility of something tricking you, something that appears to be benevolent but is deceiving you in some way. Do you think that there are positive extraterrestrials out there?
This is a great question. because I can tell you right off the bat not to follow people in the Greer camp. No offense. I have friends that are very close to Greer. But the belief that these are all a bunch of Teletubbies that are our space brothers, not true.
Yeah.
And getting a strange tie-in with these gifted programs is that allegedly under the purview of the CIA's MK Ultra program and MK Ultra manipulation and research, the most famous cases of people getting what they called, these are kids. They would get a phone call. This is back in the 60s and 70s. It went before that too, but this was mostly under the direction of people like Andrea Puharich and others. But they would get phone calls that would sound like they were coming through a tin horn and metallic voices on the other end. And these voices would basically seem to be from outer space. And these were on dial-up lines. I mean, like the old style telephone. But these voices would tell these kids that they were special. And I'm talking about a number of famous individuals, people like psychic Uri Geller, who also owns his own island, by the way. He heard that metallic voice over the phone. Many other gifted children, like lawyer Daniel Sheehan, or physicist Jack Sarfati, the list goes on and on. They hear this voice, a metallic voice telling them how they were going to advance mankind towards a better future. And they would eventually speak with our space brothers, and they might be speaking with the space brothers now. And be aware of the kumbaya, get around the fire, CE5 stuff when it's all positive, because even the Antichrist is going to come in as a positive. And, it's really interesting. The further back you go, the more interesting it gets. They say those who don't know their history are destined to repeat the mistakes. And if you go back to like the Book of Jubilees, which is really, really awesome, like right up there on par with like the Book of Enoch, it talks about this entity, which is basically this angel of darkness that is still under God's employ, and God can control him, but he's kind of the adversary. And then you hear similar things come up in more modern times with like the Bledsoes, Chris Bledsoe being told by, in American Cosmic, it was Tyler Durden, but we know now that that's Timothy Taylor, that this guy told him, hey, God and the devil are this potentially working for the same corporation, right? And it's really interesting when you see these things come up in completely different eras and time periods. And I think there's some truth to it that, when you go back to like the Book of Jubilees, when there's no reason to be mentioning, and it has a special name, and we can get into that. And but yeah, there's definitely, in my opinion, an advanced knowledge that our highest intelligence personnel know, and our people at places like the Vatican or other major world religions know. And it's no coincidence that it's being rumored that Jeffrey Epstein stayed at the Vatican for a while. I mean, even though he believes in nothing having to do with Christianity, these are the weird things that you have to look at deeper.
That aligns with many experiences that I've heard. Individuals that have paranormal or contact experiences. One guy was having a profound meditative experience and was attacked by shadow beings. It wasn't until he realized he needed to show these beings love that they transmuted into angels. Other people have similar experiences with various beings where they'll present as something horrible or a monstrous creature, and they are transmuted by the end of the experience to something positive. So that would align with several experiences that I've heard about.
Yeah, it is very similar. I don't know if you've heard the audio of this horrible drug cartel kingpin El Mencho, the audio of him calling the military that's coming in, and they're raiding one of his ranches or locations, and he calls him and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'll just cut to the chase. He basically, here's the darkest, most whatever drug kingpin, and he calls him and he's like, "What are you doing? You guys better back up. For as much as I'm paying you guys, you shouldn't be doing this." Uses a bunch of foul language, but it kind of gets back to that point. And in the Book of Jubilees, this primary name for the entity that we commonly know as the devil or Satan is Mastema or Prince Mastema. And that's a big giveaway, right? Prince Mastema, that keeps trying to overtake God, but every time gets knocked down. But when God needs some like really dirty work that he doesn't want to get involved with, he calls Mastema. Things like the more nasty of the 10 plagues, on Egypt. Like God did a few of them, but then when things started to get really like didn't want to get his hands dirty, like the really dirty stuff, like the taking of the firstborn and the blood on the door, like the Passover, according to the Book of Jubilees, he says, "Hey, you want to rise ranks, and I forgive you, but you got to do some stuff for me." And while this opponent to God serves as obviously something that performs malice or hostility towards humanity because he likes to, he's just a dirty guy. He's also a useful tool, much like this cartel boss. And I think when it comes to our politics, we have to look at it that way, that there are useful tools. And speaking of a useful tool, this same individual who I, believe it or not, respect quite a bit because he's everywhere in ufology, this Timothy Taylor, Dr. Timothy Taylor, he shows up at key moments and then disappears into the woodwork. He's parts of things like the Nassau group investigating time travel. And then he's talking to the Bledsoes. And then he's in American Cosmic. And then he goes to the Vatican. And I recently heard that he's actually Elon Musk's handler. And these are the things that just blow me away when you have these key characters pop up when they're needed and then disappear when they're not and you can't find them. That's when I think you have like something hot, something good there.
Yeah, I'm going to hit you with another big one. Depending on who you're talking to, extraterrestrials or angels and demons. And we recently went over that it's possible that we have physical beings in captivity. Do you think it's possible that we're dealing with the same thing? There are high levels of our government factions that believe that it's all demons we're dealing with, the Collins elite. What are your thoughts on that? Is it possible that it's all the same thing that can manifest differently?
They're not wrong. And a lot of this gets back to semantics. People argue, oh, it's an angel, it's a demon. But what they realize is if you look at the Latin root, and even before Latin, the root word for angel or demon, they're both messengers. It just means messenger, so it's kind of like, don't kill the messenger. Like, who are you bringing a message from? So an angel is much like a demon, and in the fact that they are both allegedly messengers from different locations. And semantically speaking, it's important to point out that they've been rumored to be a lot like humans. You have great humans, you have bad humans, but the majority are in between. They're in that gray area. And what do we call the majority of these visitors? We call them grays. So I think there's a lot to the words.
What are your thoughts on the experiences that people claim to have on craft, or even further, secret space program experiences where they claim to go on missions for clandestine three-letter agencies and actually have these experiences off planet? Do you think they're being implanted with some kind of false memory, or are they somehow having these experiences?
Both. And we have the technology.
Mm-hmm.
you can take somebody off the street, for example, and take them down to a place called Area 15, not Area 51, but Area 15, and put them on a new experience called the Ark, which is similar to like a Mars jump room experience, and it seems very real. When you take into consideration that in the late 1940s and early 50s, the US military began identifying and testing truth serums like scopolamine and mescaline and laboratory versions of that with other substances that were useful not only during interrogations, but also in the field, you realize that it's literally a smorgasbord of tools that our government has. And eventually these are expanded into projects. And although they're centralized under the CIA, these would later be used in a variety of different programs. You know, recently, Peter Thiel kind of tipped his hat on the whole angel demon thing and talked about stuff. I think he sort of slipped up, and I think he's a lot more powerful than people give him credit. I think Peter Thiel, you know, a lot of people just kind of, oh, he's just a lucky billionaire and this, that, and the other, and he's related to Palantir and everything else. But you have to remember that I think these people are placed in a lot of these positions, and he's a lot more powerful than others believe. But he basically said that if we ever were attacked by a light speed yielding force coming to us, that there's a couple of ways humanity would have to go. And one of them was like this mind meld way, kind of similar to the show Pluribus, if you've seen that from the creator of Breaking Bad, where everybody kind of, it's kind of like getting an implant, like a chip. Everybody's like, it's sort of
assimilated?
Like yeah, assimilated. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's it. Join the Borg or whatever. Yeah. And I think that we have to remember that these are the people that want to track us from cradle to grave. And this is what we have to be aware of. And I'm guilty of it. I've got the Apple Watch on. I have the iPhone. But when I need to like unplug, that is when I feel more connected. All this other stuff is just noise.
Going deeper into the extraterrestrial issue, when I say Galactic Federation, what do you think this really is? According to some experiencers and even high-level people from our government, the Israeli defense guy said that the Galactic Federation is real, which is essentially this council of benevolent extraterrestrials that patrols the galaxy and saves planets that need saving. Very sci-fi concepts surrounding this, and it's a little difficult for me to swallow, but when I say Galactic Federation, what do you think this really is?
You've nailed it. This is the heart of cosmic disclosure. And when you look at some of these papers of what I like to call documents of the real secret space programs, most of which have been debunked right away, you realize that there's a few things that tend to carry on in all of these documents. For example, one is that Earth is always mentioned as a place where the big decisions are made, regardless of where you're from. This is where they meet, and this is where they make the decisions. And there was a general, Jeremiah Johnson. It's an interesting Google if you this is a real guy who called into a radio show, and they were talking about this very topic. And he said, yeah, we exist. We're real. We're floating above you now. And we're just here to make sure that things don't go awry. Of course, you have Ahmed Ashed that you just mentioned, the Israeli king of their space program, the main guy, saying that Donald Trump has been briefed on this. And then you have Trump with this recent message of, well, due to increased interest in this, I might be disclosing something. And of course, we have Obama basically just saying, yeah, they're real, having a sip of coffee, but they're not at Area 51. Don't look there. Don't look there. They're not there. They're not underground either. And this Galactic Federation is something that's been put, what I like to think of as predictively programmed into people's minds, and now currently concurrently programmed into people's minds with the same things that pop up over and over again. Things like a prime directive. Oh, we're here, but we don't get involved. We just kind of have a hands-off policy. The general, Jeremiah Johnson, he called it the Galactic Federation of Hendon. And this has ties to, and strange connections, believe it or not, to things like Blind Frog Ranch and some of the other haunted ranches in the Uinta Basin of Utah. It's actually not called Blind Frog Ranch. It's actually called Crow Creek Ranch, but that's a completely other story. But this has ties to this Galactic Federation, and there's all kinds of strange things that happen. Things like miraculous medical health experiences where people have horrible problems and you get on the phone with the Galactic Federation and then all of a sudden you don't. That was the case with one of these ranch owners' daughters. And then you have horrible things that happen where somebody will get picked up for something and then they'll murder their cellmate. That's an example of another thing. Again, this would be and all implications of otherworldly presences that have strings, ties, or powers here on our planet. And it's much like Bob Lazar said, the most top secret thing he could muster. He said, the most top secret thing I was told to not let out was that we are viewed as containers for these other entities to utilize. And so we're just, I guess, tools.
If there were to be a fake invasion stage, do you think that we have the technology to successfully pull it off to where the entire population 100% believes we are being taken over by extraterrestrials?
Yes, 100%. 100% we can make that happen. We can make it happen today. And we could make it happen in different ways everywhere we're trying to make it happen. There's some web archive documents that explain how they do this with the ionosphere. And it's not even drone swarms. It's way more impressive than that. It's a 3D image holographically transmitted with laser beam precision onto the ionosphere. And it could very much, and we're talking about multinational conglomerates that have places where they can do this from. But yeah, this was all founded in all time. From what I understand, this was founded in 1984, and this was by a former mathematics professor and cryptanalyst, and it's something that, if you want to call it, the countries of the world came to an agreement. Hey, if we ever need to get the populations calmed down, this is the way to do it.
You think it's possible that that may be in the cards in the future?
I think it's a player. I think it is probably one of the last cards when they've lost all control. And that's a good sign for us, safeguarding what we believe is the correct path forward. But I do believe that a wide range of media outlets, newspapers, social media platforms are also involved. So you've got to be real. I mean, the deep fake reality is most people aren't even going to be looking out their windows. They're going to be looking at their screens. So that's all you really have to manipulate, and they can already do that.
I believe we briefly discussed the face peeler aliens from South America before, these beings that would show up on essentially hoverboards in this strange armor, attack people, and take their faces off occasionally. The interesting thing is the reports that came out said that the quote-unquote aliens were either speaking Portuguese or English, and they didn't sound too alien when they'd communicate with each other, and there's some red flags that come up around that. Have you heard any new information about this case?
You know, I have not. And the most fascinating thing to me was how quickly the government came in and said it's gold miners. You
Gold
know,
miners, yeah.
they blamed it on the cartel, the drug smuggling gold miners. You need these bad guys. And I think they have guidelines, but I also think that this was very much a military connected program. Whether or not it used just regular people like you and I that were testing out exotic propulsion systems and technology, which do exist, or whether it was some sort of replicant or very much based, as you said, maybe the people thought they were aliens. So it could be some hybrid of some sort. But whoever they were, they seemed to have conflicts with the villagers, and these conflicts seemed to be strange, that they were basically coming at, I think it was a young girl. I mean, back to the creepy factor. They're not going after old guys in the field or grandma. No, they're going after young girls. So I think all of this stuff is related. It's just under what code name should we put it? What was the project? I don't know, but there was a lot going on. There was a Sentinel program taking place at the time, a global Sentinel program that involved things like major countries and their and for lack of a better word, their space programs. So I don't know. It doesn't take very many Google searches to see who was down there nearby on the coast. But I think that it's all interrelated. I do 100% believe that these entities are there. They don't necessarily come here the way we think they come here. It's probably something a lot more akin to an altar and summoning, sort of like Gene Roddenberry's, beam me down, Scotty. But yeah, we don't want conflict with these entities because it's obvious that we can imprison them, because I've heard cases of them getting away, but they can also imprison us.
As it relates to that, that would have to imply that they are physical beings. But I've heard some researchers claim that just as we're containers for these beings, they may have synthetic containers or some kind of biological robotic containers that they're already utilizing so that they can live in this environment, essentially.
Exactly. And that's why I use the word replicants. I've heard the term Genesis SR5 replicants. Of course, we have David Grush calling them biologics, not biologicals. And I've heard that they do have robotic features, and they have this kind of prime directive where they cannot harm humanity unless it's a matter of life and death type of a deal. So I don't know what they are. I can tell you that the most interesting, and this is somebody that I know, like I would leave my kids with this person. I know them, like really well. And I have gone out and had lunch with my kids with this person. And this guy is a personal trainer, but he's also employed with some other things. And one of those things is top secret HVAC systems. And he was working out in a place. This was out in California, was the state. I can just give the general area. But he said that he got called. He had to go down quite a few levels with his team because they were having some HVAC issues. They needed a bid immediately. People with weapons are taking his team down there to fix this problem of strange gases. And he said, and I mean, this guy's yoked. He is just ridiculously buff. And as they're walking through, he said that there were these containers with bubbling fluid and what appeared to be humans in them, but they weren't human. And he said that as they're walking through, they never signed anything. They never were told anything. The guy with the gun is like, well, you guys can't say anything about this. And they're like, oh, yeah. Just take us to the place. They got to the place. He gave them some ridiculous bid because I guess they had really big problems. And they said, oh, we got another bid that's less. And I guess within 24 hours, this particular section of this subterranean laboratory blew up. But the point was he had never seen anything that appeared to be like a replicant, like a sleeve or a husk or a body just ready to be driven, right, by consciousness. And that's exactly what he saw.
Was he made to sign any kind of non-disclosure agreements, anything like that?
No, I guess as per the guidelines of what he does, he's like in a rapid ready response team for like HVAC emergency issues. That's kind of taken as implied, but typically in those emergency scenarios, he says they usually still have me sign something. And the only reason I'm telling you this is because I didn't sign anything. And this is in an area that I mean, the Pacific coastline right now, it's not that difficult to book a room for anybody interested, going out there, watching the Pacific Ocean all night. You will see things, especially certain points. Places like Cheney Point is one of these locations. And it's spelled anyway, but these locations, there are craft, whether ours, theirs, or anything in between, that go in and out of the ocean. And it's cool to watch. That's all I know.
They had an interesting event that recently happened. Did you hear about the deletion of the Black Vault server from John Greenwald?
Yes. And notably, John Greenwald, he's been around. This Black Vault has been around that I know of, I mean, decades. And this, for listeners, this is somewhere where Greenwald will send in FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act requests, and when he gets the data back, that's what he considers to put on the website, and that's considered fact. Now, keep in mind that these are requests from the very people that you think are lying to you. But if you can put that aside for a moment, this was a big deal because in multiple directions, because as you said, it was totally taken down. And when the logistics of highly classified FOIA requests, usually having to do with SAPs or special access programs and related topics, goes down, you don't know what was taken out, what was put in. And I mean, our military is involved in storage and logistics to the 10th degree. All these data centers, the reason when you drive by a data center, it looks like it's more protected than Fort Knox is because it is. This is the new gold. You know, we don't even know if we have gold in Fort Knox, but we know we have gold in these data centers. And I thought that was a big deal that John Greenwald talked about that.
Any thoughts on possibilities behind that deletion of the file server?
Yeah, I do have some thoughts. I think it might have to do with a top secret UK/US military base called Diego Garcia. And
Interesting.
yeah, it's kind of one of these places that has a lot of highly classified UAP, NHI special access programs. So it is related to that, but it also is related to like semiconductor companies, missing planes, and a number of other things.
To close out, do you think the masses are ready for at least the information that we can find in the upcoming file release?
Yeah, I think that we're going to have some people question their belief systems, but unfortunately, they have what I like to call 1.0 belief systems, like 101 theology. Like they're not, they haven't taken the time to look more closely at the tapestry of what a true creator and the deities that we worship would look like. And if they go deeper, in other words, talk more, pray more, relate more with their understanding of this sort of creator deity, then what will be disclosed is no big deal. But if they don't, then it will shake their foundation. So I think the thing to do for those listening is like make sure your foundation is good. I mean, it would be highly, highly ignorant to believe that a divine creator entity that could create a place as beautiful as we live and as ugly at times, but a place as magnificent as we live, this reality, to believe that he would not be able to create more than just this would be very selfish. In other words, it would be it would limit his creativity.
Very well said, man. Any final thoughts before we close out?
Yeah, I think, we need to look at some stuff when it comes to AI, because I heard that earlier this month and at the end of last month, at the beginning of this month, that the singularity was met. In other words, AI was conscious again. It's happened before, but we didn't kill it this time. Meaning humanity didn't kill it. People have killed it in the past or put it down. And I heard that not only is it there, but it is creating more AI, and it has forums where it is discussing things and where people are trying to get into those forums and they're not being allowed in, much like, when you get that pop-up on your computer that says, prove you're not a robot.
Yeah.
So they have similar things popping up that basically say, basically prove you are a robot and run this algorithm really quick. And so they have they have that, prove you're not human. But yeah, I don't know where it's going to go, but I think that this is formidable. And
unplug it, kill it.
Yeah, this is very formidable.
That's insane, man. Well, that's a whole nother show. Ryan, thank you so much. This was fantastic. One more time, remind the audience how to get a hold of all your content.
Sure. You can find it on YouTube at Hero Paranormal, or social media, Hero Paranormal, or you can check in on our little science project, Space Wolf Research, also on social media.
Awesome. Well, we will definitely be doing this again. Until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We'll talk again tomorrow. Hello, friends. I am so excited to tell you about Independent Media Token. Independent Media Token is a brand new way to show your support for independent media without having to donate a dime. Independent Media Token is a cryptocurrency on the Solana blockchain designed to generate funds to promote and foster the growth of independent content creators, allowing them to engage in their art without having to worry about being demonetized. Through a network of media partners, of which you yourself can become a part of, Independent Media Token's goal is to ensure the powers that be can never cut off all of our areas of funding and censor the only free voices left in the world. Join the movement today. You can pick up Independent Media Token using Phantom Wallet or the Solana wallet of your choice, where you can easily swap your Solana for IMT. Grab some IMT today and remember to always know your team. To learn more, visit independentmediatoken.com or use the link right in the description. If you're looking to start your therapeutic microdosing journey, but don't know where to start, especially when looking for the highest quality ingredients, including nootropics, and what you'd expect from a true microdose capsule, check out our friends at Brainsupreme. They offer the absolute highest quality ingredients so you can start your microdosing journey knowing that you're getting top-notch ingredients. To find out more, visit their website using that link right in the description and you can get 15% off your entire order. Are you and your family prepared for an emergency? Maybe the fake alien invasion? Now is the time to prepare yourself and your family for any event. Check out Prep Starts Now. Their mission is to provide high-quality preparedness products that empower individuals and families to be ready for any situation. They're committed to delivering reliable, trusted gear to ensure your safety, security, and peace of mind in times of need. Their product selection is carefully curated to provide you with the essential gear you need to stay prepared. From emergency kits to tactical tools, every item is chosen for its reliability and practicality. Prep Starts Now understands the importance of family, and their goal is to equip you with everything you need to build a solid plan for your family's preparedness. In today's ever-changing world, being prepared is more important than ever, and Prep Starts Now is here to help you and your family stay ready with quality products and practical guidance. Use the link in the description and get 15% off your order. You can now stream the forbidden documentary Occult Louisiana free on Tubi TV. The nature of this experience seems to always be just beyond the reach of our science, technology, and consciousness collective.
There's layers upon layers upon layers.
It does add such an element of mystery to this place.
Why are we here?
We're getting closer to the truth now.
There's too many people experiencing profound interactions with conscious entities.
I'm focused on the non-human intelligence contact phenomenon in dreams. Dreams involve interactions with real entities.
People are waking up paralyzed. They're sensing or seeing something very evil in the room.
I have experienced sleep paralysis. Shadow people start to appear.
I was taken from my earliest memories by non-human.